That then gets us to the pulled items. Let's hit for number 48 first. Mayor Pro Tem, do you want to speak?
So today, the Texas House of Representatives is planning on voting out a bill that would hamstring our ability to function as a city. The bill imposes a 2.5 revenue cap on local government, tying our hands and keeping
Excuse me, can everyone please wait till you're outside to speak, to talk, so that we can hear what's happening at the House? Thank you.
Mayor, if I could add, don't leave.
I thought about asking the same thing.
Really?
This is really important, and all of the stuff that we voted on that you guys wanted that you're walking out the door for will not be possible. None of it will be possible if we can't hear what the Mayor Pro Tem is about to say.
I appreciate you all staying to listen to this too. Go ahead, Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you. This bill imposes a 2.5 revenue cap on local government, tying our hands, keeping us from providing even the basic services that we provide now, let alone adapt to how rapidly our city is growing. By basic services, I'm not talking about any new expensive programs. I'm talking about public safety, parks, libraries, road maintenance, health services, and every other function that we as a city have to provide for the residents who elected us to serve them. I absolutely believe that Texas is strong because Texas cities are strong. And so with the help of my colleagues, and we've all been talking about this for the past, several months, but, because of quorum stuff, I was only able to ask 4 colleagues to join me on this. I introduced this resolution so that we can discuss the damage that these bills would do to our city and our residents. The governor and the bill authors claim they are intervening to save taxpayer money. What they don't tell you is that these bills might save the average homeowner in Austin enough to buy a cup of coffee every month. The average homeowner would literally save only a few dollars every month if this bill passes. In return for a small cup of coffee every month, Austin homeowners will be sacrificing their quality of life. Austin would face unprecedented budget deficits, and we would have to consider cuts that every program and service that Austinites care about would put them on the chopping block. We would face budget deficits in the next 3 years the size of over half our parks budget, the equivalent of the salaries of over 500 police officers and 600 firefighters. This resolution gives us the opportunity to inform our residents that these bills will put Austin and every other city in Texas on the brink of a crisis. Similar bills at 4% and 6% have been filed in past legislative sessions, and they have failed because even at 4 or 6, a limitation by the state on how we operate as a city will be disastrous. But this 2.5 proposal seems like it may pass, and we have to raise our voices about the danger it poses. And I want to point out, I know that public safety is often called out in these discussions because they are 70% of our budget, but there's also things that the city provides its employees, like benefits for children with autism, like helping our city employees pay for childcare. These are all things that we are at risk of losing with this bill that will be discussed today. And I thought about saying the same thing, Jimmy, before people were about to leave, because we as a city are the best ambassadors and people who can inform everyone. And when you hear people talking about high property taxes, it's so important that each one of us explains that it is 20% of that bill goes to the city, and how reducing that is not going to be relief on your property taxes. Our state leaders need to address this through school finance.
Is there anybody else that wants to comment on this item number 48? Mr. Flanagan.
And, we've said a lot, and I think there's a lot to be said about what this proposal might do to the city. I want to add that we have a lot of voter-approved projects in this city, but the voter approval process that we've been given does not allow us to pre-approve the operating cost for those assets. So a lot of the spending that we do is voter approved. The legislature likes to say, oh, it's not a cap. You could vote, your citizens could vote to do it. But in fact, they have. They've voted time and time again, most recently with 70 and 80% of the community. And there's also a level of partnership with the state that I think we could be improving on. If we really wanted to do property tax reform, then much the way the legislature took a step back and said, you know what, we need to really think through this before we come back with a proposal, which they did. we could sit down, as we tried over a very short time frame during session, which is not the most productive time to do it, but we could sit down and show how we have to hire more officers to account for the fact that TABC is not doing all the enforcement actions it could be doing. We have to hire more officers because there are state laws that require officers to transport certain types of patients between hospitals. We have to hire more officers because the state hasn't fully addressed its role in healthcare and mental health. And for all of those reasons, those issues that the state can claim they've done half a job on, at the city level, we can't get away with doing half a job. I like to say that at the city level, there are no excuses and there's no escape. If the city doesn't do a job, I see my constituents at the HEB. I don't know that that's true for a lot of folks up in the legislature. And that's why it's so critical that we remember why in the original writing of the Texas Constitution, we created home rule cities. We have a role to do. We have a job to do. We are the level of government of last resort to solve the problems, even when the state finds it challenging to do so. And I really hope that the legislatures that are debating this today can find a way to address these concerns for their constituents, for our shared constituents, but also come back to the table as we were willing to come to the table with them and find ways to reform how we tax in our community.
Councilmember Kitchen, and then Councilmember Sturgeon.
Thank you. I would echo what all my colleagues have said, and I want to thank everyone, and especially Mayor Adler, for the work that he's been doing representing the city and in trying to work with the legislature to actually reflect what's going on at a city level. So thank you. I want to speak to one aspect of this, and that is the assertion by the legislature that this is all about property tax relief. That's not what this is about. If the legislature wanted to help us with property tax relief and to help us help those folks in our community who need help with property taxes, they would give us the tools to do that. We don't have the tools that we need to target our relief to those who need help. We have blunt tools with regard to our exemptions. We have ask, we meaning the community, and the public, and other cities have asked for additional flexibility on things like senior exemptions and homestead exemptions, and have not been allowed that flexibility at the legislature. And so I would suggest, and that's not even getting to school tax relief, I'm just talking about the tools that we have at a city level. So I would just suggest, and also I'm sure the mayor may speak to this, but the revenue cap that's being proposed would not even allow us to continue with the senior exemptions that we've done every year. So I would just challenge the legislature to sit down and work with the cities, as we have tried to do, and actually come up with something that will really be helpful to people in our community with affordability and with what they're facing with rising taxes.
Councilmember 30, yeah.
Mayor, I echo everything, and I really appreciate my colleagues here for this resolution. And I would be very concerned, especially for people that live in West Austin, that live out there and where their potential wildfire could happen, and we're not going to be able to build the fire stations out there because of this cut. So I'm just advising people that live out there that they better contact their state legislators and tell them, hey, we need you. I mean, if you cap us, there's a lot of things there's a lot of need out there all the way around. And, your insurance policy are going to be high because we're not going to be able to provide the protection that the people over there deserve. So I just want to put that out as a warning.
Councilmember Ellis.
I agree with all the things that are being set up here. I think it's really important to note that we just went to the polls and elected to have $925 million of bond dollars to be useful in the projects that we're trying to do in this community. And this will tie our hands in our ability to do something that the voters asked us to do. And we also have multi-year contracts that already have pay increases built into them that we wouldn't be able to then meet the demand of the work that we're doing. So it just doesn't seem to me like cutting something this deeply is really grounded in fact. So I hope that we are all communicating with our legislators on how concerned we are about this.
Councilmember, anybody else? Councilmember Alter, did you want to speak?
Yes,
I couldn't
please.
tell.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Renteria, for bringing up the wildfire and the fire safety. As many of my colleagues have pointed out, this will restrain our ability to provide public safety. I want to elaborate on a point that Councilmember Tovo brought up with the school finance. If we really wanted to deliver property tax reform, we would fund our public schools at a 50% share. That is the single most important thing we could do if we wanted to deliver property tax relief. And if you actually interrogated the numbers, you would see that that is the case, that the growth in our property taxes, particularly here in Austin, but for every district, whether or not they are recapture, it's because the state is not living up to its responsibility, its constitutional responsibility to provide a public school education. We rank 43rd in school finance funding per pupil. To get up to 25, where West Virginia, we'd have to put in $22 billion per year. That's $44 billion over the biennium. And while I'm pleased that we're putting $9 billion in this year, hopefully when all is said and done, we need to recognize that these aren't just numbers, just as we've talked about with public safety. This is our future. These are our children. And we need to understand that you can accomplish both an investment in our children and property tax reform if you focus on school finance reform. Capping the cities is not the way to get property tax reform that's going to matter to anybody.
Anyone else on dice? I'll conclude the remarks. Obviously, we're all waiting to see what happens today at the legislature. I talked about this at length a couple weeks ago. I think it just bears repeating that if the 2.5 cap as proposed by the governor, the lieutenant governor, and the speaker passes, our city keeping its existing budget, no new programs, no new people, no new anything other than what's inherent in that budget, in 3 years we're $51.7 million upside down, which means we're going to have to immediately start trying to cut things that are in our existing and current budget in order to be able to make up that gap. That means that there are new programs that we would like to do that will be put in danger. We just had a pilot for homelessness that was directed at children and took half of the homeless children in our city off the streets. Pilot program. We've taken 635 veterans off our streets on a pilot homelessness project, and now it's time for us to scale that in our city. That would be a new project, and this would put that kind of thing at jeopardy. What is a $51.7 million gap mean? Well, we've all heard the numbers, that it's like 612 firefighters and it's 549 police officers. It's the entire EMS budget. And we say those things, but I think that when people hear them, they don't think that that's real, because they know that we're not going to let go firefighters and police officers. And that's true. I don't think we will. But I think it is important to understand exactly what does a council actually consider to make that up. 70% of our budget is public safety right now. If we were to cut equally, then 70% of the $51.7 million would have to be cut from public safety. Now, there probably will be colleagues on the council that will say that disproportionately, the area that we should be saving are health and human services, and that those cuts shouldn't be equal across budget that way. And we'll have that debate and that discussion. But just assuming for a second that we maintain 70%-ish of the cuts that we are going to have to make directed toward public safety, that's like $36 million in public safety cuts. How do we do that? I don't know how this council will actually do that, or if it's going to have to do that. But I do know that one of the things that we've been talking about in the city is adding additional police officers above the number that the manager indicated that he was going to add in the discussions that we had when we did the contract. The manager said he was going to add 30 more police officers a year in the out front years. And that was going to be in his budget proposal. Those are new people and new programs. That costs our city $13 million in this period of time. That's 120 fewer officers in 3 years when we would be seeing this $51.7 million gap. I would imagine that that's the kind of thing that gets considered, not only not adding the new police officers for the community policing work that a lot of us on this dais want to do, but how can we add, where does that $13 million come from when we're trying to cut $51.7 million out of the budget? We spend almost $14 million a year on economic incentive agreements. These are commitments we made to companies in our city to do things for us. Whenever there's been a conversation about looking at those, I have fought against that on this council. Majority of us have, because it's not fair to change the rules in the middle of the game. We have to be known to abide by our agreements. But I anticipate that I'm going to hear some voices from the community in the dais saying that the rules have changed. But it was the governor that changed the rules, and the lieutenant governor that changed the rules, and the speaker that changed the rules. We're going to be having that conversation. These things are not made up. These are the real conversations that we're going to have in this city because of this self-imposed harm that the legislature is considering. We have 5 new fire stations that we have planned to open because we have need. We have response times in our city that are too low. We have people that are paying more in insurance costs in our city right now because we can't get fire trucks to their house quickly enough. So for the community, we committed ourselves to open 5 more fire stations. The staffing for those 5 more fire stations, $13,749,000. When we're trying to cut $36 million out of public safety, if that's what we try to do, those are the kinds of things that are real that we look at. We've given money to AISD for after school specialists and teachers. These are the real things that we will be discussing. And to have a city that is doing so well, as Texas cities are generally, to be ranked number 1 yet again, 3 years in a row. People want to live in this city. They like living in this city. Companies come to the city because the employees that they want to have work for them want to live in Austin, Texas, because of the community that we have, because of the values that we have, because of the way that we take care of one another in this city. Cities around the country would love to swap places with the city of Austin, and why we would be doing a self-inflicted wound like this, all in the name of property tax relief? Senate Bill 2 provides no property tax relief. Ask the governor and the speaker and the lieutenant governor that question. They'll tell you the answer is no. In fact, if you watch the legislative session, they get really angry when someone suggests that it does. Except the only reason that it has popularity right now is that's what people expect it to do. This $51.7 million hole in our budget, by capping at 2.5%, will result in a savings to the typical homeowner in our community of $2.70 a month. A year from now, when taxpayers are watching their social services, their public safety budgets not being what they want them to be, and they look at their tax bills and see no tax relief, I want them to remember this moment. I hope, and we will be watching, that when the legislators are considering this bill today, I hope that somebody moves an amendment to say, okay, 2.5, but except from that public safety. Except from that public safety. I want to see which legislators are willing to step up and protect public safety and which ones are not. If someone moves an amendment that says, okay, 2.5, but except from that roads, and in a city that has the mobility challenges we have, except from that roads, I want to see which legislators vote for that and which ones do not. economic development, which the state has asked us to prioritize, to accept from the 2.5 costs we are spending directly for economic development, that they have joined with us on. Who steps up to accept those and who does not? Because we are in trouble. I have never seen as bipartisan and organic coming together of city mayors and council members across the state as we are seeing associated with this. This is not local leadership. This is local leadership trying to explain to state leadership what's going to happen. This is an attack on cities, and I don't understand it. Because cities are the economic engines of our state. Cities are the innovation incubators in our state. We're able to attract the 4-star command. We're able to be in a region that attracts $1 billion investment from Apple. We are doing something right. I don't understand this attack on cities. There's Mayor Pro Tem, do you want to move your item?
Is there any speakers, Mayor?
Well, I'm about to let you make your motion,
Okay,
and then I'll call.
I'll move 48.
48 has been moved. Is there any second to that? Councilmember Cassar seconds that. I don't have any speakers signed up. Do you want to come down and speak, Ms. Pena? That's okay. Come on down.
And Mayor, I see you at the Capitol. I want to thank you about that. One of the things I want to say as co-founder of Veterans for Progress, 75, listen to me, all of y'all, 75 of us veterans that are hurting, are old like me. I consider 66 old. I am disabled. Where in the hell, where is all the other VFWs and American Legions at the Capitol? I have been at the Capitol except for Saturday and Sunday when the legislative session opened. I spoke to Governor Abbott. I know him very well. When he was a justice, when he was an attorney general, I know his wife, and I kept on telling him already because I was surrounded by DPS because I approached when he was in his wheelchair, and I said, guys, I'm not your enemy. The enemy is y'all Republicans are doing something catastrophic to our poor, to our city. You ain't got to tell me anything about that, Mr. Adler, because we know about it already. But I'm going to hold the VFWs and American Legions accountable for not going to the Capitol with us. 76 of us aging veterans, Vietnam veterans, Gulf War veterans, Iraq and Afghanistan veterans, go out there. We're hurting, but we're out there. I should be in bed. I should be somewhere else. But I see the hurt. I know what the catastrophic situation is going to be if this passes at the Capitol. But I want people to know, me as a Mexican American, Chicano, whatever they want to give me the title, we know what's going on over there. I want everybody to go out there. Not everybody's going over there. We need you out there. Mayor Pro Tem, you're right on target on your comments. Everybody else's comments are right on target. We're going to be hurting, Mayor, and you know it. You said it appropriately. We're going to be hurt, especially the low socioeconomic status people, the poor. What is it going to do to the homeless, the funding? Like you said, you're right on target. And, I'm fighting mad right now. I go over there and I have 2 DPS troopers follow me. They're friends of mine. They said, well, we feel like y'all are a little bit intimidating. We don't intimidate anybody. We're trying to educate those legislators. I have met with 30 Republicans. I'll meet with anybody except the devil. I'm a Democrat. Have been for many years since I was 18. We need the help out there. You're right, it's going to be catastrophic for us. And the hurt is going to get worse. So if y'all haven't been there to the Capitol, I urge you, because of your constituents, not only that, because of the city of Austin, because you do vote for issues that impact the city of Austin and us veterans. If I can do it, I'm a disabled veteran. If I can do it, y'all can do it too. Y'all are younger than I am. But we need help. You're right, Mayor, because it's going to be catastrophic. But I'll be there to fight, and the Lord is with us. Thank you very much for allowing me to speak. God bless America.
Thank you. Any further discussion on this item? been moved and seconded. Those in favor, please raise your hand. Those opposed? It is unanimous on the dais and it passes. Okay, item number 5, we're going to call up in a bit. Item number 6 has to be brought up after item number 30. Item number 27 is coming after 4 o'clock. So that gets us to the 2 agencies that we can call up. The first one is the Austin Housing Finance Corporation. I'm going to recess the City Council meeting here at 11:05.